I'm Robert Scoble, and today we're going to talk about the world of APIs, which are the programming interfaces that sit underneath the apps that we all use. And today we're at Mashery to see their software as a service platform that helps companies manage those APIs. Who are you?
I'm Oren Michels. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Mashery. Before this, I was working at a blog search engine. You once had a blog, right? Yep. I was working at a little blog search engine called Feedster, and before that, a couple of my past lives, I ran a wine auction company and was once CEO of a comedy improv theater group in Los Angeles called The Groundlings.
But what is Mashery?
So Mashery's been around for actually about 4.5 years now, and we're a platform that allows a lot of big and small companies to open up what are called APIs. And APIs sound like a very geeky technical thing, but really all it means is that if you have a service or an application or anything you do, let's say on your website at www.yourcompany.com, if you want that to run either on a mobile device or a third-party platform, maybe you want to integrate it into the Xbox or into someone else's website, you have to allow those apps to have access to your underlying services. And the way you do that is through this thing called an API, and we are a platform that allows companies to open those APIs and make those building blocks available to thousands of developers to use. We currently have about 70,000 developers who are building on APIs that are powered by Mashery, about 10,000 active apps that run on our platform for about 100 customers.
I've been giving speeches to lots of different kinds of audiences lately, and the ones who run marketing departments seem like they're just getting into the API world. I mean, the geeky world, the world we all live in, Silicon Valley, has been in the APIs.
Speak for yourself.
It's been in the APIs for a long time, but now we're seeing a new kind of app that's coming out, like Siri is my favorite example.
Siri's awesome.
Right, you talk to the app and tell it to do something.
Siri is a great example of an app because a great app grants a wish. A great app is not someone's website shrunk down onto a little mobile device. A great app, you're doing something. Remember, the internet used to be a place that you went to. You sat down and said, I'm going to internet. Yeah. And you opened up internet and you interneted for a while, and then you got up and you went away and you went and did something else. And that was fine for websites and multiple tabs and windows and all that kind of stuff because you were sitting there interneting. But nowadays, you know, the internet, you still do that for some things, but you also carry it with you and interact with it all the time. So when you pull up an app, you want it to do one thing, check you in, get your assistance from Siri with finding the thing that you need nearby. Whatever it is you want to have done, you want that, and then you put it away and go away. And you're not really thinking that you're interneting. When you use Siri, you're not thinking, I'm going on the internet. You're thinking, I'm using Siri. Well, underneath Siri are a bunch of services that are also used for lots of different things in lots of different apps. And they happen to be assembled a certain way to grant a certain kind of wish through Siri. Yeah. And so you're right, the marketing departments, marketing, biz dev, digital distribution, emerging channels, whatever you call it, those are the people that we sell to, because those are the people who are whose job it is to make money. It's their job to increase the distribution for their company, and the API is a distribution channel. It sounds geeky because it's a 3-letter acronym, and you know, and you think of it that way. And of course, it's been the concept of the API has been around for a long time. But really, when you think about it, an API is not. It's as a business concept, it's not all that new. People have been assembling businesses out of component parts for a long time. The Sears catalog was a mashup of Sears and a bunch of manufacturers and shippers and the postal service, and what it was a concept of getting your business where your customers are in the way they wanted to interact with it. Yeah. And it was tailor-made. You know, there were different catalogs for industrial users than there were for home users. There was a different catalog at Christmas time than there was in the summer, and all these things were different means of assembling these same underlying services to create an experience for a customer that would grant a particular wish. And so now we have these things called apps and keys, and yeah, it's gotten a little geeky, but it's just business. Yeah. And that's what these guys are in the business of, is reaching their customers.
Well, and that's why I was talking to them, because with Siri you can say, hey, give me a reservation at the French Laundry on so-and-so a date for so-and-so people, and it doesn't talk to a web page anymore.
Right.
It talks to the API, and
Yeah.
it actually will order and buy that restaurant
Yeah.
reservation through OpenTable,
Yep.
right? Which is a completely different service on a different server.
Totally.
And it's talking. And Siri is talking to that service
Sure.
through an API.
And if you asked for something that wasn't a restaurant reservation, it would go to a different API. And the point is that, so what Siri has become is it's become a distribution channel for OpenTable, which is in turn a distribution channel for its member restaurants, right? So the restaurants have said to OpenTable, OpenTable, your job is to get us people in our dining room to optimize, so we can have the most people come through. And OpenTable has said, okay, there's OpenTable.com, that's one way, but there are also these other partnerships that we want to do that essentially allow us to more broadly distribute our service on behalf of our member restaurants.
So in this world, why do I need Mashery? Like,
Well,
if I'm an OpenTable or a
sure.
Siri or
Well,
something else.
let's use an example. So let's say that you're a Netflix, okay? Well, Netflix has, there's lots and lots of mobile apps out there. There's lots and lots of platforms. And Netflix wanted to allow people to create innovative experiences for them because they know they don't have all the ideas inside. They are, they're famous for going outside to look for innovation and such. So if you're Netflix and you want to, you have a site called Netflix.com, and that site allows you to add to your queue and check things and look at reviews and browse movies and all this kind of stuff. Well, if you want to give people access instead of through your website directly to your back end, if you're going to open up access to your back end, you need to have rules about who has access to what. And you need a means of administering those rules. And of course, being a distribution channel, you have to be able to set different kinds of rules for different kinds of people. So you're a trusted partner who we know, who we've done this deal with. We give you a lot of access to a lot of things. You're a random developer who's come along. We don't have experience with you yet. We're going to give you some constraints. We're going to limit the number of calls per day. We're going to say there are certain methods you can and can't do. But ultimately, we're going to take something that's currently a back-end service and expose it in such a way as developers can build on it using building blocks as easily as possible. So if you're Netflix, you're going to have a bunch of different APIs, add to my queue, get this review, request shipment, whatever these various things are. And then you further need the security to allow for access to a particular account. So if I'm going on to, some interesting Netflix developers apps, let's say Flixster or something, and I want to allow that app to have access to my own queue as an end user. Well, I don't want to give that developer my username and password, so I want them to use this thing called OAuth, which allows for me to delegate authentication and control which apps have access to my personal stuff. So all of these things, there's a bunch of things you have to do. There's developer communication, you've got to be interacting with the developers who are working on it, all this access control stuff, and then of course you got to have a lot of analytics, because if you can't measure stuff, it's not a distribution channel.
Yep.
So all that stuff together, if you're Netflix and you're saying, okay, I want to open this and do this, this month, next month, if you're going to go build all that yourself, you're building something that already exists, that others are already using. So either you can have your engineers who are supposed to be working on your core product build infrastructure like this. That would take a year probably, and a bunch of engineers, and by the time you're done in a year, there's going to be more things you're going to want. Or you come to us. We know what you need to do to have this be a successful distribution channel. And so you can engage with us just with our software as a service, or you can also, we have a full strategy team and developer relations team, so we can help you even on the business side. Because as you know, having dealt with a lot of developers in your time, you might be a great marketing company and you might be really great at reaching your customers, but talking to developers and managing that relationship is a very different thing.
Yeah.
And when a small company is doing a startup, they should look at the things they're doing that they do differently than everybody else. That's their core technology and their core competence. They should build that and own that and manage it. But anything they're doing that they do sort of the same as everyone else, such as issuing developer keys and dealing with that sort of stuff, such as email management, web servers, there's a lot of things, payroll, there's a lot of things that small companies do the same way as everybody else. You tend to want the speed to market and economy of scale of someone who's been there before.
At Rackspace, we totally understand that.
Yeah.
We have email hosting systems,
Which we use, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
There you go.
And and cloud, so developers can buy
Exactly.
space or
Exactly.
APIs or all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, and in fact, we explicitly don't want to run an email server here. And it's kind of funny. Email is core to our company. We can't live without it. But I'm not going to build, let alone run, my own email server. Why would I? You guys are better at it than that.
Yeah. What else you're in the middle of a whole bunch of stuff happening all at one time, right? Mobile is white hot. Gaming is white hot. Zynga, you mentioned.
Yeah.
All of these things are using APIs to interoperate, and pull. Like even my new Xbox Connect uses an API to talk to
we have several
Xbox
customers.
Live, right?
We have several customers who use APIs through us to reach Xbox.
Interesting. What are you seeing happen?
Well, what's interesting, we talked a little bit before about a great app grants a wish. It's not everything, right? And so if you're a larger company, you're going to realize that there are going to be different people in marketing, different groups, who are going to need to grant different wishes. They're going to have different experiences in these various apps. So you take that level of complexity, and some apps will come and go. Like we had Associated Press did a big app around the World Cup. It was very successful, but of course the World Cup's over. No one's using that app anymore, right? So these apps are temporal. They're defined for a particular group of people or a particular geography, perhaps. So you've got that level of complexity. Then you layer in multiple OSs, multiple devices on top of the OSs, multiple carriers on top of the devices on top of the OSs, and languages, and all these different cultural things. And companies are starting to realize there is no such thing as we're going to have a mobile app. That's just done, right?
Yeah.
So you're going to have lots and lots and lots of different apps, which you're going to want them all to be really good, which means you're going to engage with a lot of different developers to build them for you. It's unlikely your mobile apps will be mostly built in-house.
Yeah.
So you've got this whole level of fragmentation and essentially mass personalization, as it were, of these different experiences. So that's a level of complexity that sort of makes the companies realize they need the sort of underlying services available, the building blocks to the APIs. Then you layer in the fact that you need to interact with a lot of different companies and services to create a great experience. So I use Salesforce.com, that's great. Baked into Salesforce.com is Hoover's, happens to be a customer of ours. Hoover's is business information. I don't want to have to leave Salesforce to look up the Hoover's information. I want it right there inside. And in the mobile, and so you have this need that people are now expecting. I mean, you mentioned it with Siri. People are not expecting Siri to say, hey, here's a great restaurant to go to. Now open the OpenTable app and go make your reservation. Yeah. That's not what they're looking for, right?
Or Zagat, right? It has Foursquare and food spotting right inside the app. In fact, you don't even really understand where that data came from.
Yeah,
right?
Nor should you really, because food spotting, great app, and it's something I enjoy very much. But it's something where they know that their distribution is going to come from them being embedded in a lot of different places. Where did I first hear of food spotting? I heard it because someone was tweeting about it. It automatically came up on Twitter that some friend of mine spotted blah blah blah, and I said, what's that? Went and checked it out.
So when I'm building apps that are using APIs that were built on top of Mashery, is Mashery involved in any way, or is your name anywhere?
The only place that you'll see it, if you look closely, the part of the service we provide is the developer site, the developer portal, where developers come and get information about it, documentation, forums, peer help. Those portals have a Powered by Mashery badge on them, and we do allow, and most of our customers take advantage of, the ability to register for a single Mashery ID that allows you access to any of the portals we power. Yeah. But all of those portals they're under URLs of our customers. So developer.nytimes.com. You go to developer.nytimes.com. It looks just like New York Times. You think you're on a New York Times site. You're actually on our platform. Although we even have single sign-on with New York Times for that. And the API calls come through api.nytimes.com. So we are not inserting the Mashery concept, and then we don't really want to. I think I said earlier that the API is a distribution channel, and it's your distribution channel. And so the relationships you build with your distribution partners need to be direct. And each of our customers needs to have a community manager whose job it is to be the conduit between the developers and partners who are building and the internal technical and business teams who are trying to get these apps built, and build that relationship as a partnership that both sides benefit from. So I actually don't really believe there is such a thing as an API marketplace, because no one wakes up in the morning and says, I wish to build an app. What API should I go to the marketplace today for and use? It's just not, they're trying to solve a problem.
Yeah.
And usually it's, oh, I wonder if so-and-so has an API. And if they find it, they're great. And if not, they say, okay, which of their competitors has an API? And off they go. And so you can look at, an interesting example of this is on the iPad. The iBooks application that Apple sells the books on. There is a New York Times bestseller list built into it with a little Times logo. They pulled that through the API, and they didn't actually have a deal with the Times when they did this. And of course, Apple, you may have heard about this, but they're somewhat secretive of some of their launches occasionally. And so they just went and registered for key. They did everything within the terms and conditions of the New York Times. They gave the logo attribution as necessary, and they made use of this API. And day of launch, Steve Jobs up there on stage demoing that thing. There's New York Times bestseller list, and it's all built in, baked right into there, which is, of course, great placement for the Times.
Yeah.
And if that hadn't been available, my guess is that Apple would have gone and found someone else who has a bestseller list API and used that instead.
Yeah.
Or they would have tried to screen scrape, and nobody wants to do that. You want to really make it easy to.
Well, I expect the next iPhone, since Apple bought Siri, they're going to have a lot more APIs coming in the future.
No, absolutely. I think that'll definitely happen, and I think that Apple has always been, has always consumed a lot of APIs. There was search on Safari and Maps, and the great thing about the API is that you can have the underlying service that works, but Apple still can control user interface look and feel and security and commerce and all the things they care about, yet still have access to these underlying services. And that's a big part of it. There was a period of time, if we were sitting here a couple of years ago, you probably would have asked me, what do you think of widgets? And of course, widgets have largely come and gone. And the reason that widgets have come and gone is that, first of all, nobody wants their site to be a big pile of widgets.
Yeah.
But also, any sophisticated site, all a widget is a sample app of an underlying API that people really want access to. And the widget says, I, the widget owner, am controlling the look and feel and user interface that's on your website. And the person on the website goes, no, you're not. I want to control. I want to use your service. I'll give you attribution. I'll play nice. However, it's my website, and I wish to build that, and I wish to have your stuff interacting with the other things on my site, and not just existing as this island.
Right. How much? How do you charge? Is it a flat rate?
It's
or
so
is
cheap you can't even imagine.
Okay.
No, it's a rate based on a fee for the platform, and then based on volume of API calls.
And then, what are you expecting as our ending question? What are you expecting to see in 2011? What are the trends?
Well, 2011, there are a few things going on. One is we're seeing a lot of commerce APIs. So a big announcement that a few people noticed, but I think is bigger than people are giving credit for, is Best Buy announcing they actually have a commerce API baked into their API, which is really important because Best Buy has had their API for a couple of years. It's called Remix. It's an amazing program that they've had a lot of success with. But up until a couple months ago, Remix would help you find a product, or they help you interact, they give you ratings and all the kinds of stuff you needed. But ultimately, what came out of it was generally a link to a page or a link to a product which you would then buy. Now they can actually accept, they actually accept the actual order transaction through the API. And so as a result, it's not a matter of using this as a means of discovering web pages, it's a means of actually baking Best Buy as a distribution partner into whatever app you're building. So if you are a high-end audio or home theater seller, and you've got the high-end stuff that you sell that maybe Best Buy wouldn't sell, but you also need to be able to sell the cables and the underlying stuff, you can have it appear as though people are buying that through you, but funnel those but never lose that customer and never direct them somewhere else. Literally, you just pump the transaction right in, and it's as though it's coming from you.
Wow.
And I think you're going to see a lot of. I think you're going to see companies realizing, and that users are not wanting to have to switch and leave and move and whatever. They want everything to work. They want their food spotting baked into their Zagat, and so if you can't do that, the people who are not offering that are going to lose out to the people who are. And so I think that a combination of payment and commerce are going to get huge. Obviously, geolocal is massive. There isn't an app out there pretty much that doesn't, you fire it up, the first thing it says is, can I use your location? Well, of course you can. That's the point. And so we're seeing a bunch of the companies we're working with, a lot of activity in that, and Quova, who became a customer of ours about 3 months ago, just got sold to Newstar. CityGrid has got an amazing API out there. And then, smaller guys, people like All Menus, which is just hyper local food menus, or Outside In. And these are just amazing companies that are combining very, very hyper local stuff. If you go to the CNN homepage, CNN, national, international news, and Outside In headlines right there baked in, so that you can now go to CNN and get your local news as well.
Yeah, it's a crazy world.
It is.
Where do we find you?
www.mashery.com, mashery.com, or you can walk down Market Street in San Francisco and see our sign between 3rd and 4th.
Yep. And are you on Twitter?
Actually, I'm Oren Michels, OrenMichels, no A, on Twitter. Also, Mashery on Twitter as well.
Very cool. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Robert. Appreciate you coming.